Yeah, that's the thing.
No, you can't just say that's
they
the
let
thing.
it happen.
No, that
yes,
totally contradicts the
this is
entire
why.
narrative. I think that that's a totally valid excuse when you're 15.
I'm not
but if you're the
talking
president of the United
about.
States, what is like the hope?
No.
What are we hoping that would happen?
What I was hoping what would happen was the economy would continue to build in a better way. Not that we would
continue.
because it was building.
Yeah, under
yes.
Biden.
Yes, it was. I agree with that.
So why wouldn't we choose a guy that was building it?
Yeah. So thanks a lot for Travis, right? That's his name, Travis, for flying me out, man. Good to see. The audience is great here. So Destiny, yeah, thanks guys. Here. So Destiny, I wanted to ask you this, man. You've stated in the past that I guess that the MAGA right is notorious for violence. You've said this. You've called them degenerates, etc. That Trump kind of insinuates a lot of the rhetoric and the actions of Trump supporters. Am I more or less correct on that?
I don't usually criticize him for violence. I think I think the tendency, I mean, especially since the BLM stuff, there's more, at least cumulatively, violence for left-leaning people. But I would also kind of expect that right now, given the state of affairs. So.
Oh, okay. So, wait, when you say that you expect the violence from the left on the state of affairs,
as in, like, if you have like a certain system where people feel like somebody is completely and totally out of line, and that person is using the power of the executive to be totally out of line, well, like, what would conservatives even enact violence about? They would have nothing to protest. They'd have nothing to riot over. I imagine it would be probably more left-leaning people that would be rioting.
that would be rioting?
Yeah.
So, like, for example, like the Tesla burnings that were happening, it was all premeditated. They had the Doge, dogechase.com or something like that kind of premeditated all that. So, like, my thing is that when I look at the Trump election and how he got elected, and maybe I can ask you this. I think one of the reasons that Trump got elected in the first place was because when you say, like, for example, with your other opponent here, when you say the MAGA right is a cult, I'm thinking in my head that the Democratic Party at this point is actually a cult as well, you know, regardless of what it is. Now,
who's our cult leader?
Oh, well, here's the thing. I don't know who the cult leader is, but it's the
Wasn't that kind
Democratic
of
Party as a
important?
whole, right? No, well, here's the thing. It could be a cult without it because, like, for example, vote blue no matter who. You've heard that phrase, right? The anti-Trump tour, like we're on right now. It's a cult that's against Trump no matter what, right? So we've seen this to where Elon Musk at one point had the Tesla vehicles that a lot of left-wing people were buying. Then, of course, Elon Musk wasn't necessarily supporting Trump at first. He was a Ron DeSantis guy, etc. Then he turned to Trump. Then we saw that after he supported Trump and he donated it to him, we saw a lot of the left wing kind of burn down Teslas and be violent about this, right?
Well, I don't really think that was the only thing he did. I think it was also the fact that he joined Trump as an unelected bureaucrat and began unilaterally shuttering federally approved agencies in the government while, like, engaged in the most insane over-the-top rhetoric on X.
What's the most insane over-the-top
Like
rhetoric?
constantly calling for judges to be impeached or imprisoned, or saying that...
Which judges? I'm not too sure.
The recent judge that just made a ruling related to... basically anytime a new TRO gets issued, I think that he's done it for the Zini lawyer. I think he's done it for Brasberg. But he tweets about judges
So
all the time.
he wanted to get them removed because
he doesn't like it when they issue a TRO against Trump. But wait, just real quick, you're not familiar with Elon engaging in any, like, anti-judicial rhetoric
here's the
on
thing.
X?
Like, I know Elon Musk has stated that he doesn't like these individuals, which is fair enough. He has his opinion, right?
But it's not just his opinion, right? He's like the richest man in the world, who's the right-hand man of the
but you have an
president.
opinion too. Like, for
I'm not
example,
an elected official. I don't work in government.
Well, you have a huge influence when it comes to your audience, right?
Yeah, but I don't work in government.
Yeah, but what does that matter? Like, here's the thing.
Well, if
When
I
it
was
comes
part of
to-
the government and I
when
was
it
calling
comes
for
to-
another part of the government to be destroyed, I think
Yeah,
that'd
but
be
I would
really
make
scary.
an argument that influencers and even actors, etc., actually have more influence on the public than even politicians.
Than most politicians, is probably
most
true.
politicians, yeah, that's
but
why.
Donald Trump, because he's a cult leader, probably
Sure,
not.
but even with you, I think you have more influence than on the public than most politicians. wouldn't you say?
Individual, yeah, that's probably true.
Probably
yeah.
true. That's what
Than
I'm
most
saying.
for sure, especially city council.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, when you say, well, I don't work in government, at the same time, I could say, yeah, but you have more influence on the public than most politicians, right?
No, I agree. I was just pointing out why people would probably have such a visceral reaction to everything Elon Musk has done. I think it's super warranted that people would feel horrified by it.
Right. No, yeah, for sure. Okay, I get you there. But I wanted to shoot this back here. When you were stating that, when I was stating that one reason that I think that Donald Trump specifically won this election was also because I think that the left, like you admitted earlier, is notorious for violence, right? We had the BLM riots, the Chaz that happened, right, in Seattle. the Tesla burnings. So I think a lot of the people that voted for Trump was also noticing that the left is absolutely lunatics when it comes to this type of rhetoric. And Maxine Waters, even in 2016, when she was, when Trump won his first term, where she was saying, get in the face of MAGA supporters. When I was, because I'm from South Texas, I would wear a MAGA hat at a bar, and I was getting attacked by people that didn't like that. I think this is what drove a lot of people towards Donald Trump to vote for him, wouldn't you say?
I mean, it's possible. But
don't you think it's
so
like
what?
kind of a big deal, though?
No, because I think that they don't talk about any of the violence that their side is ever supporting, either explicit or implicitly, at all points in time as well. So, how am I supposed to feel bad that people are complaining about Tesla dealerships being burned down, but then they're clapping when people are being deported without due process from this country? I have absolutely no sympathy. And the fact that they can keep doing this hand-wringing of, like, the left is so bad and they won't disavow these people, even though the left has to disavow its own side all the time. When Biden...
I don't see any of the left doing that, though.
I don't know how much you're looking at.
Well, I watch your show.
Okay, well,
Like, for
Biden
example,
literally...
you
Biden-
you didn't even disavow the assassination of Donald Trump, bro.
I wish. It was the assassination attempt, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Hey, but am I right there, Destiny? Come on, man. Come on, man.
Just jokes. So you can have a standard for my behavior. You can talk about whether my behavior is over the line or not. But
Right.
I think it's very different when you compare the behavior of somebody in government versus me, who's like a
But
pundit.
also, you're a guy that has more influence than politicians. That's my point.
Yeah, but it's a different
here,
type
than
of
the vast
influence.
majority.
It's a different type of influence, though, right?
What's the difference? Tell me.
There's a different expectation for behavior for things that that I would have versus somebody who's part of the government. Would you agree, or do you think it's the same?
I would agree that
Yeah.
your influence would actually affect people's behavior more so than some random person.
No,
in
it's not.
politics,
It's about the expectation of like behavior or what would be proper. So if I was an elected official and I was working in the executive branch, it means something a lot different for me to say I hate this judge
Right.
than if I was just like a pundit and I was like I hate this judge. I think
Right,
bad
right,
villains.
right.
Those are so you can have a totally different standard expectation of behavior regardless of how many people you influence or not, just based on the role that you occupy.
Yeah. Well, I get you there, but like my point is that I think you have way more influence than the vast majority of politicians. So that's why I'm saying like when you shoot the rhetoric when Corey, fucking don't even remember the guy's last name, Corey something, I don't know, but he passed away, and you were stating something, and you doubled down on Pierce Morgan. You said fuck Corey, fuck his supporters, etc. I think also with your rhetoric when you were stating that stuff, I think that leaned a lot of people watching that sit and said, Destiny's a fucking psychopath. I don't want to vote for Kamala Harris or the Democratic Party.
Yeah, but
like,
at
wouldn't
some
you say
point,
that kind of hurt?
at some point, it like. I don't want to change the diaper of a 25-year-old. Like for somebody to go online and to be making like all of these jokes, as Dave Rubin had, and he was on that episode with me, about the guy the
Paul Pelosi?
psychotic dude, that broke into Pelosi's house
Sure.
and was like with a hammer was smacking this dude. It was insane and unhinged. And then again to like have the tears whenever it happens on their side. I think I would rather be unhinged and force the conversation than have to live in this world where the left constantly has to apologize for all of its own stuff and the right pretends that nothing ever happens on their side. Because
Yeah,
like
I
the
think
same
the opposite there.
What?
though. Yeah, I'm thinking the opposite there, Destiny. Like it's kind of
Well,
crazy
Donald
because
Trump came in and
when,
he pardoned every single J6er and nobody on the
Yes.
right cared.
Yeah, well, look at the thing. Joe Biden pardoned his entire family and like what is it, 8,000 people before he left office.
So the
But-
large so two different things. The large
Okay.
swaths of people that were pardoned, that was like a technicality for commuting sentences.
Do
Because
you
of
agree
stuff
that
served
Hunter
over-
Biden should have been pardoned?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yes. And I think that because he has no tact or political understanding whatsoever, Donald Trump proved it when Donald Trump complained on, I think it was a NBC interview, and he said, I can't go after any of the people on the J6 Select Committee because Biden pardoned them.
Well, yeah, that's true though, right?
Yeah, but
it's not like he's lying there. He can't go after
he
them.
wanted to go after them politically. There are no crimes here. He just wants to target, and we've seen this administration, would you agree, has engaged in the targeted lawfare.
I would say that even the Biden administration had the targeted lawfare against Donald Trump as well.
And what? Give one example of that.
Okay, well, for example, what's her name? When the judge went after Donald Trump's real estate, right? He said his real estate over there in Florida,
Mar-a-Lago, yeah.
Yeah, that shit. It was worth $18 million, right? We can see from the papers that shit's worth at least $600 million. They're going after his real estate to kind of backtrack on him.
Well,
so
yeah,
that
but wait,
way-
what does that have to do with Biden? This is
Well, because it's targeted prosecution.
But where's but it's not
Because you asked
Biden.
me the question. Give me.
No, I asked you.
asked me
Give
to
me,
give
show
you
me
an
something.
example
because
of that.
Donald Trump is writing executive orders, literally
No,
targeting.
but I'm answering
people.
your question though, Destiny. You asked me to give you an example of that.
Biden doing
where,
it.
Well, no, well, the Democratic Party. Remember, you guys are the vote blue no matter who party. You guys are the cult of that, right? It's not like you guys go after Donald Trump. When it comes to the Republican Party, it's kind of, I would say, probably 70-30, where it's like MAGA and then Republican, right? Your Nikki Haley's, Mike Pence, et cetera, the ones that don't support Donald Trump. So it's kind of more divided than the Democratic Party. You guys are a lot more united on that, right?
Donald
And
Trump literally ejected his entire.
when it comes to Trump, guys, when it comes to Trump, everybody from the progressive side, from the liberals, all of you guys are anti-Trump. I mean, this is just a big
but I mean, like, wouldn't that make sense if the guy is so divisive? And the Republicans are super pro-Trump. Like the approval rating.
You mean the MAGA Republicans?
No, I mean Republicans. I mean,
Like Nikki Haley's super pro-Trump?
yeah, they all
Fuck
support her
no,
now.
she's not, dude.
You can say
Not-
that,
not
but
even to
Donald
that
Trump, the
degree.
only thing that was buoying his approval for so long was the fact that on the Republican side, literally no matter what he did, it was like 88%, 92%, 87%, 90%
Yeah.
approval. Like, he had pretty wide support from the majority of the Republican Party.
No, yeah, for sure. But like even
But just on the thing. So like,
Yeah.
because I can think of several horrible like legal targeting things that Donald Trump has led, but can you think of anything that Biden or Biden's administration? So not a judge in Florida, but like something that Biden ordered, because that judge could just be an asshole judge, right? It's not necessarily Biden on that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like when it comes to the Democratic, and I'll tell you this: Biden, of course, he was the face of the Democratic Party for 4 years, right?
Yeah.
We can say that. Also, the Democratic Party as a whole, that's what I'm saying. Where you guys are a lot more notorious for violence, and that's why I'm saying my point here is that a big reason why Donald Trump won that election, not only because of the assassination attempt, right, which you said you wish the bullet hit him, that would have been the best thing. Didn't happen, thank God.
I didn't say those words exactly, but
Well, something along those lines. I think you said it with Rob Noor or somebody
Okay.
along those lines. I can't remember exactly.
You got about a
But-
minute, Jake.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you. Thank
you
you.
got-
But my point is that I think that with that type of rhetoric, along with, for example, you guys lying about Joe Biden's, mental health, right? That was another big one. Jake Tapper on
why
CNN.
do you assume that people lied about his health and weren't just either coping or?
Well, even well, that's my point here. Even Jake Tapper.
Wait, you can't say that's
Jake Tapper is literally writing a book about how he covered up, CNN covered up Joe Biden's
If there was a coordinated
mental
effort to
health.
cover up Joe Biden's mental health, why did they let that debate happen?
Well, yeah, that's the thing.
Well, no, you can't just say that's
they
the
let
thing.
it
No,
happen.
that
Yes,
totally contradicts the entire narrative
This
you
is
gave.
why they let it happen specifically because they let it happen. They let him train for like what, a week or something like that by himself. They wanted to
What,
prep
like
him for
200
that because
times
they
gravity?
couldn't
What does that
avoid.
mean?
They can't avoid a debate.
Of course, Trump dodged the debate when he was running. What do you mean?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They let Biden debate. He got totally smashed, right? But
I
the
don't
Republican- the
understand
MAGA
how if there was a whole coordinated effort to cover up Biden's senility, why would they ever
for
let him
years
debate?
before they couldn't hold it up for so long. They let him debate. They had to do it eventually.
What? No, they didn't.
Yes, they did.
No, they didn't.
Well, then that's going to make them look bad. when
Didn't
it comes
Donald
to the
Trump avoid
election.
a second debate with Kamala? Didn't Donald Trump avoid debating any of the?
No, he didn't.
Nikki
He didn't
Haley
need to,
or
he didn't need
DeSantis?
to debate Kamala, bro.
This is the
'Cause
all roads lead to Rome
no,
thing,
it's
right?
not,
So he can
because-
do the
well,
exact
here's the
same
thing,
behavior you said that Biden couldn't get away with doing.
Well,
but-
Destiny, look at it like this, dude. You're
Yeah.
a top tier debater. Why would you, unless you get something? In other words, debating me, you get nothing out of this, right?
Right,
The
YouTube
only
video.
thing that gets something out of this debate is me, right? So when Trump is gonna debate Kamala for the second time, he gets nothing out of that. At that point, Joe Biden looks like a moron. The assassination attempt already happened. The only thing Donald Trump has to do is just fuck it. I don't care to debate Kamala because he feels he already has the debate in the bag.
I understand the
Doesn't need to do
political
that.
savvy that goes into this,
Well,
and
yeah,
the calculation.
but
I'm
because
just
you
saying
asked
that
why he avoided that second debate.
Yes,
Tell
and you're
me
giving
this
me the
is why.
logical
These are
reason.
tactics.
But when we look at Biden doing a debate, if he was truly being covered for by the entire Democratic establishment, then it stands to reason that they would find reasons for him not to do the debate.
Yeah, but they had to do it eventually, right?
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
They could just say we don't do debates. He's too divisive.
Okay, and then they're going to lose the election. This is why it's
Well,
like
they lost
okay, either
anyway,
have
no?
them- and yeah, they lost anyways for sure. So it didn't work. But that's what I'm saying. I think the Democratic Party probably should have got rid of Biden earlier, and then put in Kamala Harris. Which, by the way, nobody here voted for Kamala Harris to be the representation of the Democratic Party.
Sure, so
even
let's
though
say-
Trump is obviously the threat to democracy there.
Well,
right?
because in 2020 he tried to make it so none of the votes mattered, and he could just have Pence say who won the election. I would say that's probably worse. The issue with the story, the narrative you're giving, is that like how is it that the Democrats were all in lockstep? Like, there's two stories.
Okay.
Either people were genuinely torn on, like, is he just old? Is he actually senile? What's going on? And they just kind of like kept it going, because why would you take out a person who just beat this guy in the last election? Why would you run somebody different and get rid of your incumbent advantage and get rid of a guy who already beat? Like, that's a really
Probably
extraordinary thing to
because
do.
he has mental health
That's
issues.
fine, but like,
That would be
were they genuinely confused about that? Or was there a top-down plot to cover up how senile he was the
Sure.
entire time that
Yeah.
went through all of the media and all of the presidency, but they weren't strong enough to just not have one debate?
Yeah, that's the thing. Well, here's the thing, Jake Tapper. And here's the thing: you want to paint the picture to where it's like, okay, they wanted to cover it up. Even Jake Tapper in CNN, who is writing a book about this called "The Cover Up," on Joe Biden's health.
Do you normally cite Jake Tapper on things you believe, or just in this one time?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I watch CNN plenty of times, man. I watch.
Do you
CNN,
normally
I watch
cite
yourself,
CNN as a
etc.
credible source, as like a
I could
party?
cite him at times, yeah, sure. When the argument's here, I'm just saying Jake Tapper had inside information. Wouldn't you say that Jake Tapper has better
without even
information
reading
than
the book,
you when
without
it comes
even
to
reading the
CNN?
book, my guess is going to be what he's saying is that people saw Biden and they tried to give him favorable coverage because they weren't sure and they didn't want him to look bad, but not
Sure.
that they genuinely thought that it was like a lost cause and he was super senile and they were trying to hide that from the American public. Because if that was the case, they would have never had the debate. It's so obvious.
No, it's not obvious, Destiny. Here's the thing: when you have
Last
the entire
thought, Jake. Last thought.
Okay,
Thanks.
yeah, just last thought on here. Destiny, thank you so much for the exchange. That's for sure. It was really good. But I will tell you this, guys. When it comes to the last election here, Donald Trump won this because of the fault of the Democratic Party. The assassination attempt, and then I'll even say Elon Musk even buying X did help Donald Trump in the long run, right? When it was Jack Dorsey, he got kicked out, etc. So that was kind of a thing that kind of helped out there. But I think the Democratic Party shot themselves in the foot, and this is why we have Donald Trump, and people want Donald Trump right now. So that's really what it is. Destiny, thank you so much, man.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Have a good one.
Right.
I am a liberal, but I am someone that thinks that the most important problem in America today is political polarization. I think that we really need to moderate as much as we possibly can. And so I want to talk to you about, like, where do you think the MAGA movement came from? Because my position here is the Democrats for a long time, or I guess the establishment as a whole, has been really focused on improving material conditions. Like you even said it yourself, that MAGA all wants the same stuff. They want, cheap food, housing, ability to raise a kid. And I think that if I had to say that what was the one reason why MAGA has risen is because people don't feel like material goods and like stability and material security, that doesn't create a narrative that you can be proud of for your whole life. Like, that doesn't create a lifelong narrative, and I think people are missing that. Because if you look at the Rust Belt and who are the people that are supporting Donald Trump, like, a lot of these people, they have homes, they have a family, like they're totally fine. Like, if you look at like the purchasing power of America, we have the highest purchasing power of any nation. And it's like, so why, when we have so much material success, do people not believe their eyes or something? And so it's like, I think it really comes down to people are supporting Donald Trump because the establishment is so focused on the material conditions rather than the narrative conditions.
I think narrative is important. I think another way to kind of phrase what you said a little differently, or to look at it from a slightly different perspective that I think incorporates the same kind of idea, is Democrats have kind of been focused on governing and maybe some like social movement related stuff, and Republicans have worked really hard on messaging over the past 3 decades, my whole life. It seems like Republicans have just always been really good at messaging. Like, even if you think of, I grew up on like kind of the talk radio world. Like, the talk radio world was always way more exciting on the Michael Savage and the Glenn Beck and the Rush Limbaugh side, as opposed to like there's literally the meme of the NPR voice, right? That just sounds like a boring FM radio talk show host that, talks whatever with the jazz music in the background. And I think that one thing that has changed our lives in just unbelievable ways, my life, I don't know about you, and I don't know about some of the people in here because you guys are younger, but like the internet has just truly, in ways that nobody could have imagined, and in ways that people don't even give enough credit for, have just fundamentally altered so many different parts of society. And I think that as the internet has changed us a lot, I think one of the things we've kind of run into is a bit of that kind of crisis of meaning. I think that there is so much out there now. There are so many different pieces of discrete information, of different facts, that people are like hungry for somebody to come together and just weave it all together in a compelling story for you. Because left to your own devices, you know, if you were to go online, you know, you've got the big podcasts, you know, the Joe Rogans and your Daily Wires and your fun social podcast, but there's like a million different shows between Facebook and X and all these other things, and who knows what's right or what's wrong. And I think that Republicans, because I think they've completely given up on governance. They just don't give a fuck about any of that process at all, and they've only focused on messaging. They were able to come in and just capture that space so well. All of my analysis of Donald Trump, I basically shifted gears to this entirely over the last few months. I just analyze him as like an influencer, and I think that describes most of his behavior. He operates in a way that he can just capture so much attention. That's all he wants.
Right, but the reason why I think it's so important to work with Trump rather than to try to say we're going to get rid of Trump and then we're going to fix things. Like I think that's a losing proposition to say we're going to get rid of Trump and then fix things, because Trump represents taking risk, and the thing that the establishment really has tried to avoid is to avoid taking risk. We're trying to avoid further harming the most marginal communities and the most marginal populations, because when you do something radical, when you do something big, it's going to disturb the system, and the people with the least amount of resources are going to be the most vulnerable to manage that transition.
I would agree with you, but the issue is that he's just so far off in another world. It's not.
That's the entire Republican Party.
I know,
But
it's not good.
So this is what I'm saying, that
Yeah.
if you want to engage with the Republican Party, you have to start somewhere, and we may as well
You
start
can,
with
but
Trump.
the problem is if you negotiate almost anything with that side, you've lost fundamentally all the aspects that make America America.
Why?
Because Donald Trump fundamentally doesn't believe in rule of law or democracy or separation of powers or the
I
Constitution.
don't know if that's true.
Which part do you want to go into? He doesn't believe in separation
No,
of
no, no.
powers because he believes that he has the ability to
No,
fight
no.
with the judiciary anytime he wants. He doesn't
I
believe in rule of
believe
law
that he
because he's literally has
believes
criminal
in- I
immunity. He's a
believe-
convicted felon. Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you that he is not acting as if he believes in those things. However, I think he's just an opportunist, right? Like, he doesn't believe in anything.
I agree with that kind of. Yeah.
So it doesn't. So
But you can't work with an opportunist. This is a cancer,
well,
right?
sure you can, because the whole point of liberalism is that when you work together with other people, that's the best thing for everyone.
No, the point of liberalism is everybody involved has to believe in liberalism for it to work.
Well, no, because you have like, liberalism is all about individuals. It's all about how everyone comes to the table with their own idea, with their own wants, and even you can say everyone is just ultimately selfish, and still liberalism works under those conditions. That
I mean, would you consider it a liberal? If 80% of us all across the country agreed to abolish the Constitution, are we still a liberal society?
well, I mean, like, what did we replace it with? Like, did we replace it with nothing?
Or with a king?
With a king? I mean,
Because you could do that. I mean, our Constitution could be amended, theoretically. That is possible. I'm just saying that for liberal, something that I think people don't give enough credit for is in any given group, everybody kind of has to agree to play by a set of rules. And when you start breaking those rules, you step out of bounds a little bit. A little bit can be tolerated with, and you can negotiate a person back, but you can't you can't play with somebody who wants to play completely outside of the rules. If you had a sibling and
no,
you played
I disagree with that.
There's a difference
can.
between like playing with somebody who, like, if you played like chess with a sibling and they make a bad move and you're like, I'll let you take that back. Okay.
Well, then you just play a different game. You play the game that they want to play.
Yeah, but the game we want to play is democracy. And if they want to play a different game, we don't want to play that game.
I-
But that's
I-
what I was saying. Playing the different game means we're fundamentally
you
losing.
You can't just assume and assert that they don't want to play democracy.
I don't have to assume it. I just listen to what he says and what he does.
Well, like, maybe he's doing that because he gets so much pushback from the Democrats, right? Like, maybe he's doing that because no one actually understands.
I think that that's a totally valid excuse when you're
No,
15.
I'm not
But if you're the
talking. I'm not
president of the
talking
United
about
States-
Donald Trump. I'm talking about Republicans in general. That
They need better leadership.
No. Like Democrats do not understand what Republicans want. Like, no one is talking about the fact that Republicans don't give a shit about the material conditions. And they say
That's fine that they can say that, but all they cried about for the last election was material.
Well,
so
because-
what are we supposed to believe? It was supposed to
So-
be the
but
cost of everything was
no
too
one
high.
is the only person that really talked about this is Jordan Peterson. And what happened to Jordan Peterson is he got ejected.
Because
Like,
Jordan
he got-
Peterson doesn't just talk about it. He talks about a lot of crazy
but
shit.
what I'm saying is, it shouldn't just be Jordan Peterson talking about meaning and trying to put some scaffold around what meaning is, right? Like, there should be more people talking about it. And Jordan Peterson has his own idiosyncratic
I
ideas
agree.
that aren't all
I don't
correct.
disagree with what you're saying. I'm not sure if politicians are the best place to get meaning from, because that's a
No. So
yeah.
what I'm saying is, it's the fact that academia and the elite and the establishment as a whole have not given people the words to talk about their crisis of meaning.
Yeah, but usually it doesn't come
And
from
so-
there. Usually it comes from our culture, right?
No, a lot of the articulation, the way that people talk about things, it comes from the top. It comes from the people that are having intelligent conversations about it. Like, liberalism didn't come from the culture; it came from academia.
I could be wrong on this because I haven't studied this area, so I'm on very unsure ground. But like my guess would be more that
Me too,
that the culture dictates. So people that are making movies and music are probably going to be dictating what our conversations are more than somebody in an academic institution writing a paper about sociology or something.
Like it comes from like those underground, like feminism came from underground academic conversations. Liberalism also it came from like established institutions, right? And so a lot of that. Like,
Sure, but we're not talking about like
it might
necessarily
not be
feminism or
one
liberalism. We're talking about just kind of like narrative or purpose, right? It's a little bit different.
Well, I mean, I don't know, because the feminism movement is what gave women the language and the articulation to say what their grievances were and say it in an intelligent way and say it in such a way that they got men on their side.
What do you think? Okay, what do you think it should come from?
I think it should come from academia. I think more people should have worked with Jordan Peterson, took him more seriously, and said, how do we articulate this lack of meaning? And because when there is nothing to articulate, then we're going to talk about economics. Then we're going to talk about economics. Like, of course, because if
Do you think Jordan Peterson was effective in his approach to academia, saying all of it was rigged and that he didn't trust like 15
I think
different-
Jordan Peterson was idiosyncratic, and he made a lot of blunders, and he was disagreeable with people, and he could have been great, but he fumbled the bag. I think.
You got about 1 minute there, Benjamin.
Yeah, I think I lost my train of thought.
That was my fault, sorry.
Let me see if I can.
You said
remember what I was gonna
Peterson
say.
fumbled the bag. I asked you because I feel like it's just so weird because I feel like because Democrats are the only people who are willing to ever self-reflect, that Republicans are just unimpeachable when it comes to questioning motives
No.
or questioning
So-
understanding people. Because like Jordan Peterson would say that like, well, all these trans people, they just want to make it so that they can compel me to speak about their pronouns this way. And it's like that's probably not really what most people care about,
I
right? But like,
agree.
so he's doing the exact same thing, but for some reason it's liberals that have to analyze ourselves for why we're so mean and fucked
We don't
up.
have to analyze ourselves. We're in control of academia. That's why we have to do it. We're in control of any rational thought.
Sure, but like
Or
MAGA is
rigorous
literally,
thought, rather, not rational.
I would say metaphorically, before MAGA was opposed to academia. Now, literally, today, Trump is trying to destroy academia. So,
Well, yeah, and this is the thing.
So
like,
that you think
we
Republicans are gonna
we
be-
need to fix this. This is critical that we fix this.
okay, but right now, Trump's trying to pull funding from places, and he's trying to blackmail places to get them to
I know.
change their curriculum and everything. So,
I don't like it, but I think if we don't do something about it, if we don't moderate,
So do
it's
you
going
co-
to
do
get
you- is
worse.
it- do-
And
so-
there's going to be.
but you think there's a path to redemption, capitulating in the eyes of somebody who's trying to destroy the
I
very
don't have
thing you're
time
trying to
to.
reform?
I don't have time to get
Okay.
into it, but I do think there is a path to redemption, like a concrete one. But I think I'll end on. Like, I was talking to Trey earlier today, and he was telling me about, like, he's a very successful guy. Like, he's got a job, he's got a family, he's just became a father, so congratulations to Trey. I think, and he talked to me about, like, he's got 2 houses, he's renting out one, and so it's like, but he feels the economic strain. And so how is someone like that, someone so successful, feeling economic strain, feeling rising grocery prices? How is he feeling that? And I think it's because he feels like, and I think I feel this way, that what are we aiming toward? What are we angling toward as a society? Like, what is beyond just this material wealth? And it's and the thing is, of course, if you have enough money, you can create your own meaning. And so it's like when prices start going up, when housing gets harder, it's not that we're struggling to survive. It's that it's eating into my ability to go beyond, to really tell a story that I'm proud of, and I think that those beyond me will be proud of. And I think that is something that we really need to think about more rigorously and try to give that language to everyone, so that they can say something beyond just, I don't like inflation.
Okay.
All right, Benjamin, thanks a lot. Excellent.
That was a bend. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good. So
Okay,
I
wait.
have a.
Do the microphone thing.
Yeah.
Get it right in front
Thank
of you.
you.
Yeah, okay.
It's a little uncomfy.
Yeah, you're good.
Just a tad. So I have like a. I don't think I'll be able to get to it all at all. And again, thank you for doing this. This has been fantastic that you give people the opportunity to do this, and thank you for Travis. So the first thing, I guess, is to piggyback off of the few conversations you just had. I don't want to keep going and beating a dead horse, but because that's kind of how it's probably going to feel. But I feel like you have this very opinionated, polarized view of, I'd say, the extreme right. And I think you group the extreme right in with kind of the right, because there's a lot of, at least from my conversation circles, and they're not very active online, and I think maybe what you view and what you see is the active right community that's online, which is absolutely unhinged, and it's absolutely crazy. But I think there's also a lot of people out there that voted for Trump that see a lot of the things that he's done, and they do not speak up as much as they should, and I think that they should. But the few conversations that I've had with people that did vote for him, I am the one included, to where it's, okay, well, the tariffs are a bit crazy, let's dial back, or, okay, well, these maybe the deportations is another thing, along with the fact of the pardoning of the January 6ers. And you also said something earlier about the Jan 6ers, to where you said that nobody on the right spoke up. Are you saying like the right influencers, or are you
In
just
the media,
saying?
yeah.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that. Because I'm like, there were people that spoke up, but it's just not anybody who's in the prevalent media, which is, again, the issue. So, yeah, that's my big issue. But I guess my first
Do you
question
know the
to you-
differences between somebody who adamantly votes for Trump and somebody who reluctantly votes for Trump?
What?
There's none.
I
I think that's
don't
the
know about
issue. Is
that.
there's like, I'll find a lot of these people who are like, oh, I don't know, I don't fully support it. Like, at the end of the day, a vote is a vote. It all gets counted up the same way. So I mean, it doesn't really matter if he still has support. Like, Donald Trump is an extremely unhinged, like quasi-fascist, like just an unbelievable person, and I can't imagine what it would be like to even reluctantly vote for somebody like that. Like, something is so broken, I think, with the concept of America right now, if that's the case. But so I don't know, when people are like, well, there's not like the most extremist supporters of this guy who is extorting law firms all over the country and openly bragging about it, is installing terrorists on islands that are only inhabited by penguins, is deporting people without due process gleefully in the middle of the night, has hired an anti-vaxxer as the head of the agency. Like, I mean, there's like a billion different things you can say. And it's like, well, yeah, but Kamala was woke.
Well, I don't think that's the only issue. I think there was a lot of people's issue, to where the issue with Kamala that at least I heard was that there wasn't like a consensus around her to put her as the primary. There was not a primary for her. She just kind of was the front runner, just suddenly.
Yeah, but nobody believes that. Nobody actually cared about that.
I don't know about nobody. I think
They
nobody.
didn't, because
I
if they
think
did,
nobody in
because
like
find me any of these people, and I want to see how much they were tweeting about the fact that Donald Trump refused to debate any of the other primary challengers.
Well, that's again where my issue comes in, where they weren't active online. They just had an opinion, and they, so that's
I mean, if it's
where,
not showing up anywhere in the media anywhere, then I mean.
Well, again, that's I agree with you there, where they need to make their voice heard, and they need to actively be active online, but.
Or anywhere. It
it's-
doesn't have to be online. It could be in the media. It could be a
Well,
politician.
exactly, yeah. But
Why can't you? But you know why you can't do that, though, right? It's because the Trumples will destroy you.
I don't. Well, yeah, they'll try. Yeah, I agree with that. I couldn't say that they'll destroy you, because a lot of them are delusional. So,
Well, I mean, that you won't have a political career anymore. You'll be gone, right? Trump will primary you. You'll get kicked out of office. Like, nobody will want to vote for you. And
especially if you're a politician. Yeah.
yeah, like there are no, like the never Trump Republicans are just retirees.
Yes.
now.
Yeah. Agreed. A lot of the people that I know still think that he won the 2020 election, which I don't quite understand. But
Sure.
so I guess
That's like fucking insane, right?
yes. No, I agree, 100%. But that's
But like you're just like casually dropping what would be the most unbelievable conspiracy in the history of all of in the history of all of governments across the planet for all of time.
I
that,
agree.
that election was rigged.
Yeah, but there's also the people on the left that I've also seen in my Facebook, groups, or even just Facebook friends that I have, that are just now saying that the 2024 election must have been rigged, because there's no way Trump should have won.
Yeah, but do you know who's not saying that? Kamala Harris.
I
or
agree.
any Democratic leadership.
No, I agree.
And you know who is saying it on the right side? Donald Trump.
No, I agree.
So it's like a different world. And every single I don't know I think there was one cabinet person who acknowledged that question and said that Donald Trump had lost the 2020 election.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think everybody else talked around it. Wouldn't
They
even
did,
answer
yeah,
that.
including J.D. Vance.
That's kind of crazy that the world's leadership in democracy currently has a president that doesn't believe in the outcome of the last election he lost.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And it's a big problem too that I would say most MAGA Republicans are the same way. But I do have another question that's like not relating to any of this. I wanted to know your opinion on, and I think I know it, but your opinion on the deportation of what's his name, Kilmar, I believe.
I haven't dug as much into the legal stuff on that. I think ideologically I'm opposed to it. I think legally I'm opposed to it. But it gets into weird kind of like foreign policy territory, or how much you're going to dig into that?
I was digging through the legal process of everything that was going on with him, so I could just go very briefly into it.
So I guess a quick thing. The reason why I have an issue with it is traditionally prior to maybe Al Qaeda, I guess, when we thought of like terrorist organizations, you think of these like small groups that are non-state actors typically.
Mm-hmm.
It starts to get really weird when a terrorist organization also happens to be like the government or administrator to a region. Now for ISIS, it was kind of different because they took over parts of countries that were still controlled by other people. But like, would you say like the Taliban, would you consider that like a terrorist group? I actually don't know if the U.S. is. I don't think they do. But like, but we would think of them as kind of a terrorist group.
Yeah.
But it's also like they're the government in Afghanistan, right?
Yeah.
And so like,
Or
let's say that
Hamas.
you want to protest, and you want to support for Hamas. I mean, like, Hamas is the government of the Gaza Strip. So are we basically just saying for every single person here with a green card or a visa, you can no longer protest on support of or on behalf of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip because it's related to Hamas, which is a foreign terrorist
Well, you're
organization?
thinking of Khalil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, what did you say?
I was talking about Kilmar.
Oh,
Sorry.
fuck.
Not
Kilmar,
Kilmar.
Wait, is Kilmar Abrego Garcia?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
my bad. I thought you said
No,
Khalil.
no, you're okay. Yeah, they're. Yeah.
Oh, for the Abrego Garcia one, yeah,
Yes.
that seems like it was really bad. I'm opposed to that, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's what because he was here with I believe he was charged in 2019, and then he was allowed to stay, and then without due process, which is my biggest issue, was he was just shipped off.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll have to pull out my phone for 1 second because I
Okay.
have all of them written down.
I'm just kind of curious because we went over a few things that seem to be deeply troubling to me. I would say like
Of
any
course.
one of these things are an insanely troubling thing. You said you voted for Trump. I'm guessing this last election.
Yes.
What would you have possibly been afraid of from Kamala that you think like supersedes any of the stuff or the totality of the stuff that's happened so far with Trump?
Well, honestly, to me, my biggest reason for not voting for Kamala, was to the exact reason that I stated earlier, and that I heard a lot of these.
Wait, what was the exact reason earlier?
The exact reason was that there was no primary for her, and the whole reason I did.
Wait, why
vote-
would that have to do with whether or not you thought she would have been a better candidate for
Because
Trump?
it wasn't really that. It was more so the fact that I heard a lot of what are the problems, or I guess not problems, worries about Joe Biden from the right when he was running, that he would, ban guns, or about like a lot of crazy things. And then I heard also a lot of crazy things about Donald Trump, and I just put them up against each other, and I'm like, well, these things could come true, or we might do okay.
Okay,
So-
but I'm like curious. If you look at the record, so Trump banned bump stocks.
Yeah.
Biden didn't take our guns.
Yes.
So I feel like that's 1 point for Biden.
Yes.
What was another issue that we were worried about between Biden and Trump? Biden got the infrastructure bill passed. Trump wanted to do that and wasn't able to. Foreign policy-wise, I mean, we were involved arguably with less stuff. There was the Ukraine stuff and there was the Gaza stuff. But we exited Afghanistan, even if it was sloppy. We exited Afghanistan. We weren't involved in the Yemen stuff anymore. We weren't involved in anything in Syria, basically. I'm just curious, like, what was the thing? If you look at the 4 years of each, where do we give Trump points on? Where we're like, oh, I would rather have 4 more years of Trump than 4 more years of a Biden-esque.
Well, because I think I was going to say that's kind of a hard question. It's not really, because a lot of things that people give Trump credit for, he kind of walked into from the previous administration. So that's where I'm like, I can't really give him the credit for those things because Obama should be given credit for those things. So, at the same time, people that said the same thing about Biden, which I don't really agree on. So again, that's where me casting a last minute vote, because that's basically what it was. I was just a very undecided voter. I would like to have a third party in, but again,
I'm still trying to figure out what was it about Trump where you're like, this guy's going to be the better one than Kamala. Like on what one issue?
It wasn't really that. It was more so just that I weighed the negatives of both, and I'm like, I don't know what could be correct.
What were
And
the
I think,
negatives that you weighed for Kamala?
well, again, the unrealized capital gains, which you said again, which I agree
Would
with
never
you.
happen, right?
No, I agree with you. That would never happen.
Okay.
But that's where there were things with Trump where I did not at all anticipate that he would have this gigantic MAGA base behind him. I thought, okay, well, there's got to be someone who will hold him accountable. Where
Didn't he literally say that though coming in? Wasn't he saying, like, we saw J.D. Vance saying he would have supported him on January 20th. He would have voted for him.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We saw that he was trying to find people who were loyalists to him the whole time. You saw him try to fire everybody in the final weeks of his presidency last time.
Mm-hmm.
Did we just expect that he was going to fail at everything again, I guess?
I guess fail at that, yes. Not fail at everything, but fail at bringing all loyalists in, and maybe it would be a little evened off. Was at least my hope. Yeah, but that obviously
it just
did not
seems
happen.
crazy to me that, like, we could have either voted for Kamala, and our biggest worry was an unrealized capital gains tax, which probably would have never happened. And I'm just making an assumption here, but I'm guessing you don't have hundreds of millions of dollars in unrealized
Oh
capital
no, not
gains.
at all. It was just no.
So
I
it's
would
not even
love
real-
that.
okay.
Yeah.
So it was that, and then for Donald Trump, it was like there's the potential for all of this absolutely horrible, atrocious stuff to happen, but I don't think he'll pick the right people to make that happen. Like, I feel like if I was just looking at both of these candidates without knowing anything about America or elections or whatever, and somebody's like, well, on this side, you got a candidate who might do maybe a bad thing, but probably not. And then this other guy, he could actually be Hitler 2.0, but he probably won't be because you'll have people around him that'll stop him from doing that. This seems like an easy choice. So I'm trying to figure out what is driving us away from one or towards the other.
It's mainly just, I guess, the driving factor was just the hope behind it. So just the hope
for
of that
what?
that wouldn't happen.
Well, no,
That's
but
it.
what would happen? It was the hope that he would just show up and die, or what is like the hope?
No.
What are we hoping that would happen?
No. I guess what I was hoping what would happen was the economy would continue to build in a better way.
Why
Not
you
that
say
we would
continue?
because it was building.
Yeah, under
Yes.
Biden.
Yes, it was. I agree with that.
So why wouldn't we choose a guy that was building it? Wouldn't that make more sense?
Because there were certain things that that Trump ran on that I agreed on, like deportation. I agreed on that, not how extreme that he's putting it out at all. But I agreed on which again, it's not like Biden didn't deport anybody. Biden was actively deporting people. But again, I would like to end another one. Well, one of my questions kind of goes into this was I would like to end the catch and release at some point. I don't know how that would even work or happen, or what we would put in place of that, because it would have to be something.
Sure.
But
Okay, like here's something that bothers me. So you say you don't even know how that would work. The reason why you don't is because nobody actually talks about any of it.
No,
They
I
just talk
agree.
about like getting rid of things or like destroying our immigration policy or whatever. It's like, well, what are we going to replace it with? Like, what's an actual solution?
Well,
and I think that's
yeah.
an issue. Is that like there was a border bill. For whatever reason, Republicans decided they didn't like it, even though it was a Republican bill for helping border stuff that Trump didn't want passed at the end of Biden's term. Well, now are we past 100 days yet for this term? We still have no legislation relating to the wall at all. We have nothing related to the border, nothing related to asylum. Like, really, we have nothing. There's no legislation at all, I guess. So, like, what happened? Do we not care about that, or?
it's not. I guess yeah, because it's like, I mean, not me, but Trump. Yes. And that's again where one of my biggest issues comes in, is that
Well, but then I'm also trying to figure out this too, because this is so hard. So people get mad at me, and this sounds mean, and I don't mean to sound mean, but like
No,
sometimes
you're
I feel like people don't have the real problem. They just talk about things that they think they have problems with because the media's told them they have problems with. Okay. Now I don't know. I'll be honest. Okay, because the only thing I know about Michigan is you guys cheated in every football game. Okay, against Nebraska. All right. Michigan and Alabama. The thing I'm perplexed by is that two things that you're voting for are voting against is you're voting against unrealized capital gains tax, which I'm guessing you don't have millions of, and then you're voting against border illegal immigrant stuff. Is Michigan a popular destination for a ton of
No.
Okay, it seems like a far way to try. I'm like, what is actually going on here? Now, if you would have told me,
yeah.
I think that, I think we could have expanded our Great Lakes by taking over, fucking Toronto or something. Okay, well, I kind of get it. You're closer here. We're closer to the Canadian border. It makes
Yeah.
sense.
No.
Little little dictatorship.
Yeah,
you know?
sorry. And then, I think you might take us to. But so can you see from my side how like that's like really confusing to me? As I'm trying to figure out like what do we vote? Because like everything you've described so far, I could kind of get if you were like, so I just didn't vote. I stayed home and I was like, F it. But you didn't. You were driven to the polls to go and vote for Trump. And was it really illegal immigration and unrealized capital gains when you were at the polling place? You were just like these.
Well, no, because it was mainly that I was undecided up until election day, and even on election day I was still undecided. It wasn't something that I was like, okay, I'm going to vote for Trump. Most of my friends, I told them running up to the election, there's no way I'm voting for Trump. But then I was trying to see who would be in place for Biden. I didn't want to vote for Biden. I wanted to vote for somebody else who I thought was more coherent at the time than Biden, and that's what I was hoping for. And I saw Kamala get put up, and I'm like, okay, but I don't like the way she was put up. On top of that, she's running off of a lot of things that kind of Biden ran off of, and I just kind of feel like it's going to be a copy and paste, and I would like somebody to have more of a, not that Trump didn't do that from his first term to his second term, but it's more so of I was still undecided at the polling. So I wrote, at this point, I would say that I slightly regret it, but yeah, I voted for Trump, and that there was a lot of things that I went into with that, and I was like, okay, well, hopefully the best outcome comes from this. And that's, if anything, I'm not in control of what happens. So I would like for the best outcome to come. And that just didn't happen.
Final thoughts?
I don't know yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I appreciate the talk. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Cool.
I would like to have
Thanks a
another
lot,
one again.
Josh. Everyone, big round of applause.
Thanks.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you for doing
Of course, yeah. Thanks. We have one more debater left.